Start investing in gold and silver at sdbullion.com today and join over 35,000 precious metals investors who have made the switch to the lowest gold and silver prices in the industry. SD Bullion recently claimed a spot on the prestigious Inc. 500, making them one of the fastest growing bullion companies in the United States. With low bullion prices and over-the-top customer service, SD Bullion is setting the standard for precious metals transactions. Visit www.sdbullion.com today. Start saving on every precious metals purchase you make.
Hey guys, Sean from sgtreport.com and the SGT Report YouTube channel here. I've got the doc from SD Bullion and Silver Doctors on the line, and boy do we have a lot to cover. Batten down the hatches because I think 2017 will be the year of the collapse. John, how are you?
I'm doing well, Sean. Good to be back with you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. It's been a long time. There's so much to talk about, and as we're having this conversation here, we're looking at about $16.10 silver, and the beatdown in gold has brought us all the way down to, well, right now $11.35. It was lower. I wonder how low they'll take us. Armstrong is saying below 1,000. But I have got a very powerful soundbite I want to play for you here later in the show from Michael Pinto, which lays out the thesis for a collapse, a total collapse in 2017. Where would you like to start? What do you make of $16 silver and sub-$1,000 gold? Is Armstrong off his rocker?
Well, I mean, it's certainly possible. However, I'm not forecasting sub-$1,000 gold next year. Now, certainly, I mean, if gold prices took out $1,000 to the downside, you definitely would see a bifurcation of the physical market via the futures versus the futures market, even more so than right now. I mean, right now, Shanghai premiums I think are about $35 or $40 in gold. But I mean, we've always said in the end game, it's possible paper prices could greatly disconnect from physical prices. So, right. I mean, if you're talking something like that with the COMEX running dry, then sure, maybe paper prices drop below 1,000, but at the same time, physical prices, you're not going to be able to obtain that gold in any significant volume for around those prices. I mean, my personal outlook, I mean, it's often said that history doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. And if you look back at last year when the Fed hiked interest rates in December, last year was the very next day gold and silver bottomed and began a very strong bull move for the next 6 to 7 months. Now, we haven't seen that this past week here as gold and silver have continued lower for this past week since the FOMC statement. There is a little bit, or I should say the FOMC statement was a little bit different this year because not only did they hike rates, at the same time they threatened 3 more rate hikes in 2017. So I think that's the one piece that's a little bit different here, that gold and silver have continued down a little bit. And then yesterday morning, I mean, really the trading action is promising in silver because Japan comes out and they're going to continue their loose policy. Silver's slammed about 40 or 50 cents. But, I mean, it's not even 24 hours, and it's recovered all of those losses and recovered the majority of them in the same trading day. And it's trading back above $16 here. So, right. In my mind, especially in the thin holiday market that we're seeing this week before the holidays, pretty impressive that silver has regained that $16 level.
You know, you mentioned the manipulation as it relates to Martin Armstrong's prediction that we could see sub-$1,000 gold. If that happens, it certainly won't happen for very long. And you mentioned the arbitrage between the SGE and the COMEX. We're seeing nearly, at least at one point, we were seeing about a $2 premium, a $2 arbitrage between the price of silver in China on the SGE and the price of silver here in the West. And it's really shocking. It's exactly what we've been talking about. This is what collapse looks like. And we know that the UBS and Deutsche Bank traders have been laughing openly, mocking really the world as they were driving down the price in silver and victimizing those invested in the silver market and getting away with it. So it seems to me that if that manipulation is allowed to continue, it will continue But there is an end in sight. There's just no way, given the dishealth of the global economy, that this manipulation of silver and gold can go on forever. There's too many buyers. There's too many people that want out of the fiat, want out of the bonds, and want something tangible, real, and honest, like physical gold and silver.
I mean, really, in a big macro picture, manipulation of the gold and silver market is not too different from trying to peg a currency artificially, an artificial peg, like you saw the Swiss peg in their currency to the euro a few years ago. And eventually market forces overwhelm it. And like if you look at the example of the Swiss franc versus the euro, it was pegged artificially, and the Swiss have found themselves in the position that, hey guys, if this keeps up, all we're going to own is euro bonds. We're going to own the entire euro bond market. We're just going to give in. And then there's a drastic move as the free market forces take over and the central bank gives up. So it's really in the big macro picture, manipulation of the gold and silver market, in my mind, is not too much different than that.
All right, well, let's talk about bonds. I have a soundbite I want to play for you. A very powerful conversation took place between Greg Hunter and Michael Pinto. And in this soundbite, Hunter asks if the bursting of the bond bubble could lead to a total systemic collapse, shutting down the entire system.
This is the Mac Daddy, the granddaddy of all credit bubbles around the world, correct? So could this shut banks down, shut brokerages down, shut the financial system down?
Well, it could, unless Janet Yellen immediately goes back into quantitative easing, and that might buy them a little more time. But again, I'm a student of history. When has hyperinflation ever saved an economy, Greg? That never has happened before. You know, there's hundreds of trillions of dollars worth of these interest rate swaps out there, and these people who have exchanged a fixed stream of assets for a variable rate. Well, these people, just like AIG, they don't have the capital. If rates go up too high, they're going to say, hey, listen, I can't pay your variable rate loan. So then there's two people, counterparty risk. You go out of business and your counterparty goes out of business. These are things that people aren't thinking about. By the way, do you think you could take China, the #2 economy on the planet, offline and all of the emerging markets and not affect the U.S. stock market? I mean, you want to go ahead and buy this hype and mania when we really think Donald Trump's going to be very good for the economy, maybe in 2018. But do you really think that Donald Trump, whatever he's going to do, is going to offset immediately what's happening right now with the busting of this bond bubble? There isn't a chance of that happening.
All right, I'll pause it right there. So 2017 could be very ugly, according to Michael Pinto. Your thoughts on any of that, Doc?
Yeah, I completely agree. 2017 could be a very messy bond market. I mean, we've seen rates move up 1% already. If you see that continue, and I mean, there's nothing really to signify that won't continue. I mean, it looks like we do have a top in the bond market. If that's the case, I mean, this is only just beginning. And so if we have seen a top, bonds have a long way to go to the downside. And yeah, I mean, when you're talking about $600-700 trillion in derivatives, and the large majority of them tied to interest rate swaps, it certainly doesn't take a math major to do the calculation. And I mean, just the pain we have already at a 1% move, much less if you see historical, just a revision to the mean, 4 or 5% interest rates. I mean, you're talking massive, massive pain.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, selling begets selling. And, you know, one of the points he made earlier in the interview with Greg Hunter there is that as we move into 2017, right around the corner, we're having this conversation on the 21st, guys, of December. It's Wednesday. And right around the corner here is New Year's Eve in 2017. And Michael Pinto is positing that many, many sellers will try to get out of this stock market as soon as they're in the clear of 2017, in the hopes that President-elect Trump may reduce the cap gains tax, allowing people to pay less tax on any sales happening in 2017. The point being, the stock market is at an epic bubble right now, and we haven't seen much selling here in 2016 because nobody wants to, the professional traders don't want to lock in that higher cap gains tax. And I think it's a very lucid thought. Pinto's saying the only thing that could even slow the tide of a collapse would be more QE from Janet Yellen. But then the outcome of that would be hyperinflation, which gets us right back to gold and silver, Doc.
Yeah, that's certainly the case. I mean, the fund managers definitely are thinking that way. And it's not even just fund managers. I mean, it's businesses. I mean, from a business standpoint, Doc Investments and SD Bullion, we're doing everything we can to make any capital expenditures, anything we can put on the balance sheet for this year in 2016, so we don't show the IRS gain or as little a gain as possible in 2016. The same thing with the hopes that Trump follows through on his promises and taxes potentially from looking at his plan for corporations are going to go from somewhere around like 43% down to 15%. So, I mean, it's businesses, it's fund managers, and it's not even just mega fund managers. I mean, it's average Joe investors. You could read the writing on the wall, too.
One of the things that the folks who don't listen to programs like ours don't understand, I like to say our friends, neighbors, and colleagues don't own any physical precious metals, and they don't understand the necessity of having those assets in their portfolio because they've been brainwashed. They've been brainwashed by the manipulation. Meanwhile, they're also being brainwashed into thinking the stock market can only go higher. This bubble, when it bursts, is going to destroy livelihoods. It's going to destroy entire investment portfolios. It's going to level the sheeple people. If anyone new to this information is listening, what would you suggest they do as it pertains to their positions right now in the stock market, the bond market, the paper markets? What do the sheeple people do to protect themselves from this bursting of the bubble that Pento's describing?
Well, I think that's a two-pointed question. And, I mean, ultimately, you have to look at gold and silver as insurance. And so for people who don't understand it, why would you invest in gold and silver? The market's racing, etc. Real estate's been hot the last few years. I mean, all you have to do right now, we have two real-time examples. We have India and Venezuela.
Right.
So it starts with education. Educate yourself, educate your friends and neighbors. Look at those case studies, Venezuela and India, and look what happens to your currency. And then imagine you're a Venezuelan and you have gold as insurance, whether that's 5% of your portfolio, 10%, or if you're an extreme gold bug like yourself or myself and probably have over 75% of your assets in precious metals. Put yourself in that scenario in Venezuela today, in India today. I mean, right now in India, if you hold all your funds in cash, they're either now worthless or you've been spending literally the last 45 days in bank queues trying to convert your cash into acceptable, whatever their new rupee notes are worth. I think like $1, $2.50.
Right.
In Venezuela, if you have Venezuelan, bolivars, I mean, you're now either weighing your cash, you have no access to food versus if you have gold and silver. I mean, the big thing to realize is right now, if you are an average citizen in Venezuela, even a middle-class citizen, you now have, it's too late now. You can't get out. Your currency can't even buy you a plane ticket out of the country. I mean, you could walk across the border, but you literally, depending on where you're at, you literally your currency cannot buy you a plane ticket out.
Right.
This is if you have gold and silver, you may not have recognized the signs for the past 2 or 3 years, but you can still do something to protect your family and get yourself out at this point. So, I mean, that's what I would say to people, especially right now where the sentiment in the precious metals market is so horrible. Start out with a basic understanding that gold and silver are insurance, and they're not going to zero. They're not going off the board. They can't ever go to zero. And they protect you from something drastic happening in your economy. Right. And now it's hard to get over the normalcy bias that that's over there, that's India, that's Venezuela, that can't happen here. But, I mean, the truth is it can happen here.
Well, it can, and, it wasn't that long ago that we were saying, well, that's Zimbabwe, that's Weimar Republic. And now we have these two much more current examples. What's going on right now in Venezuela is a nightmare, where evidently an ounce of silver can buy several months of food. People need to understand that. I mean, this is real world. It's happening right now. People need to understand the insidious nature of these central banks and these criminal governments. What's going on in India, absolutely beyond the pale. Are you a little bit shocked, like I am, that the Indian people are this damn passive and have not yet revolted? Because their government Modi is destroying them, and they appear willing to stand for it.
I mean, I'm not really shocked. I'm by no means an expert on Indian culture, but I do know a little bit about it. And I mean, India is not. They don't have a moral Western culture. And what I mean by that is, in their caste system, they almost have no respect for the lower caste. So as long as it's not happening to them right now, they have no moral compassion. And I'm speaking in generalities. Obviously, with a nation with that many people, there's certainly going to be people who do care. But in generality, the middle class caste, they're approving of what Modi's doing, and they will until it drastically starts to affect them.
Right.
And then it's going to be too late.
Yeah, and I think the Indian people remind me a little bit of the Japanese people, just to the degree that in Japan, again, the government seems to be able to get away with all measure of corruption and money printing and buying up the stock market, and the Japanese are very docile. It makes me wonder if maybe the entire human population will follow suit. Let's throw Martin Armstrong a bone, since I brought him up earlier in the conversation. Australia looking into canceling the $100 bill. The Australian federal government is planning a full assault on the black or underground economy by appointing a task force who will consider the future of the $100 note and bans on cash payments over a certain level. This is the plan of the global bankers, isn't it, John? This is what they want to do. They want to ban cash, even in the Western world, under the guise of curbing corruption, when you and I both know where the corruption lies. It lies in the big international banks that have been caught laundering drug cartel money. This is complete nonsense. Banning cash is not going to curb corruption. It's going to cause serfdom. Do you think the Australians will settle for this? Are they less docile than the Indians? Or will we all just stand for the banning of our cash?
Well, again, big picture, you have to take a step back and take a look and analyze, what is this all about? And if you go back a few years, really it began with the test run in Cyprus and the bail-in model. And then they've been testing negative interest rates. And, I mean, what we talked about earlier, the global banking system has a problem.
Yeah.
Now, the only way out of it, outside of a complete collapse and total annihilation of all the Western banks in the banking system, which is not what our bankers would choose, obviously. The only way out of it is an asset grab of all of the citizens. So you can do that a couple of ways. You can do that through hyperinflation. You can do that to some extent through negative interest rates. You can do that to some extent through a bail-in. Now, for those two options, negative interest rates and a bail-in, what is needed? What's needed is for the citizens to keep their cash in the banks. Because if you think about it, if you institute -1, -2, -5% interest rates, the population is just going to go take all of their currency out of the bank and put it under their mattress. So in order to get ahead of that, you have to first implement a war on cash and make it illegal to own that cash. So, I mean, the whole thing about drug lords, and I mean, that's just the explanation pumped to the masses for going after the cash.
Mm-hmm.
Now, also thinking big picture and step ahead, I mean, India obviously I look at India as a test run, just like Cyprus was.
Yeah, it's a litmus test.
And
right.
smashing success for the bankers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not been smashing success for India. I mean, it's been horrible. But when I say it's been a smashing success, there's been no massive revolt. Indians have sat there and taken it, like we've been discussing.
Yep.
So I'm sure the bankers are looking at this as a smashing success.
I agree.
And so big picture, what hasn't been talked about much in the alternative community is that if this is indeed the banksters' plans, after you implement a war on cash and you get all of the main economies to eliminate any banknote worth more than a pack of cigarettes or a gallon of milk or a bus fare, next you have to go after gold and silver, because anyone with any rational forward thinking, once gold and silver, or once cash is banned, once large cash notes are banned, gold and silver is the next alternative to park your wealth, and they are also a viable alternative to avoid the asset confiscation via either bail-in or NERP or hyperinflation, what have you. So to me, you can clearly see that's coming. It'll be interesting to see how long it takes for them to ramp that up and to begin targeting gold and silver. I personally don't think it's likely to happen until they're about done with the war on cash, because there's really no need to until they've reached just about the end game of the war on cash. And then it'll probably be draconian. It'll be quick because there's not too many investors that have gold and silver. The industry's small. The mining industry is small. And they don't want to play their hand before they have to.
Well, let me jump in, and you're scaring people here just in terms of, I think you're lucid, I think you're correct, but targeting gold and silver, what do you see? What does that mean? Are you talking about steps taken to confiscate? Are you talking about steps that draconian?
I personally don't think they're likely to confiscate. I think it's more likely just to be legislation, like whether it's either taxes or we just state it's illegal to buy it.
Okay. All right.
So,
well,
I mean,
yeah, that's where state power comes in, though.
I can't predict exactly what they're going to do, and yeah, it might scare people, but you have to realize that anytime a government does anything like that, so I look at India right now, for example. Gold officially is trading in India, I think, $1,100 or $1,200 per ounce, but if you're in India and you actually want to convert your rupees for gold, you're paying over $3,500 per ounce. So what it would actually do for real transactions of gold and silver is send the prices through the roof. You just wouldn't be able to do it in any official capacity.
Yeah, it'd be black market. Okay, well, I think this is an extremely important conversation. I'm going to round it out, too, by reading the rest from Martin Armstrong there, which backs up exactly what we've been talking about. I mean, look no further than the CalPERS pension problem in California, the pension problems in Illinois, what's going on down in Texas with some of the police pensions. And Armstrong writes, Australia, like everyone else, is facing a monetary crisis whereby the current system of taxes and social programs with pensions are colliding and will simply collapse. This idea of perpetual borrowing cannot be sustained. Instead of reforming the system, they, meaning the establishment, the governments, prefer to attack the people. As always, we are just the enemy. And he's talking about the reason they're trying to ban cash. It's very insidious. We're on a slippery slope. And a little bit like World Trade Center 7 is sort of the key to understanding 9/11. Precious metals and the manipulation of the markets of precious metals, of gold and silver, and this banning of the cash is the key to understanding where we're headed. And I really do appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on. Can you tell people about your website, Silver Doctors and SD Bullion, will you?
Yeah, silverdoctors.com. Joined you as one of the Russians, I guess, but
that's right.
I haven't gotten any payment from Putin, have you?
No, I haven't, and I asked the same thing of Bill Holter. He's known me a long time. I said, Bill, do I speak Russian? Do I know anyone from Russia? Yeah, it's all poppycock. They're trying to make us out to be fake news, Doc. It seems to me we're one of the only sources, you and I and Zero Hedge and the other good people out there, Daily Sheeple. We're the only places where you can find real news, but the mainstream media likes to malign us as fake news. I think it's an honor, but I also think it makes us a target, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly does. But yeah, so silverdoctors.com, and then sdbullion.com is the retail portal for gold and silver.
All right, guys. And sdbullion.com, $777 shipping. Is that right? I think it's flat rate shipping on anything you order. Isn't that right, Doc?
Yep, that's right.
All right, Doc. Well, thanks for joining us. We very much appreciate it. Guys, check out sdbullion.com. We have a banner at the top of SGT Report if you'd like to click that and get there directly. And check out silverdoctors.com, one of the best sources for economic news and, of course, precious metals news every single day. And check us out at sgtreport.com, thephaser.com, and thelibertymill.com for real news, the antidote to the corporate mockingbird media's lies 24/7. Thanks for listening.